Knock it off. One of the first pictures I'd ever taken. Yeah, it looks like him, doesn't it? I had no idea what I was doing technically with the camera. I was down on the Bowery and just shooting these faces. This is easy. Riding the thing backwards, photographing faces, that's difficult. Because this, I'm just standing there with a 300 just picking them off. That's like shooting ducks. But when you're riding it backwards, I'm on the thing now. And the first thing you know and the first thing you learn is you wrap that cord around your wrist and you hold on as tight as you can because you're going to get bounced around. I mean, if you want to be silly enough to ride this thing, you better hold it and hold it tight and wrap that cord around your wrist. You don't want anybody else getting hurt and you don't want to lose your lens. I love the Easter Parade. I don't know if any of you shot the Easter Parade? That's it. 2 parades you have to find. The Easter Parade and the Mermaids Parade. Because everything happens and it's wild and it's free and everybody is disgustingly narcissistic and you're not going to have any trouble. Kara was saying that, you know, her strength is not people. The Mermaids Parade and the Easter Parade, don't worry about it. They want to be photographed and you can move them and direct them whatever way you want. So find parades.
If I may,
Sure.
I noticed that most of the pictures, they're tremendously effective. Not that my opinion
So, I'm
matters.
sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing
Okay,
you.
can you hear me any better now?
A little bit.
Okay. I was taught by amateurs, mostly my father, not to center the subject, to try to make a statement off-center, but these
Easy.
look fabulous.
Easy. There are 2 rules. First is there are no rules. The second rule is if you happen to run into one and you want to break it, break it. Robert Frank, great photographer, said it best. You find your way by intuition, not by intelligence, but by intuition. So whatever you feel at that moment, you do it. With all due respects to your father and your grandfather, they're not you. They don't have your experiences. So you shoot whatever you want to shoot. You can look at it later and say, well, I should have moved left or right or up or down or whatever, and that's how you learn. You look at what you've done, you analyze it, you make your mistakes, and then you correct them. But you don't necessarily have to follow, you know, your grandfather's rule or your rule. I want you to walk out of here and say, there are no rules. I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. It's one picture. It's not a double exposure or anything else. New York City is full of these things. You don't like shooting people, Carol? Shoot windows. Find windows that are graphically overpowering. I'm sorry if there are any Mets fans in here. This looks like a Yankee window. That's one of my big thrills is in New York City, just walking up and down Fifth Avenue and the side streets, looking at windows. But not only looking at the mannequins or whatever is in there, look beyond that. There is more than one thing to look at, and that is the reflections of New York City. You know, like the buildings behind here. You know what that is?
Hair.
What? I'm sorry?
Hair.
No, I'm sorry. That's a pear. What? No, I paid $3.15 at the A&P for that joke. Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.
Dorothea Lange. Anybody know who she is or was? Good, we got a few hands. I like, what I'd really like for you to do, getting from this class, is knowing the history of photography. Seeing who came first, you know, and what they did. and take little snippets out of what they did and use them. You know, you stand on their shoulders for a while, but eventually you get off. And Dorothea Lange, and anybody know where she was born? Two photographers, two great photographers, and I don't hyperbolize with great. Two great photographers born in Hoboken, New Jersey. Dorothea Lange and Frank Sinatra. No, Dorothea Lange and Edward Stieglitz. Two giants. So I wrote to the mayor of Hoboken and explaining that, you know, besides Frank Sinatra, you named the boulevard after, you've got these two great photographers. I mean, great in the history of the game, were born in Hoboken. How about honoring them in some way? Maybe a little park or something that has no name, or a monument or something like that. Nothing. You know, and I was surprised because I used big block letters and bright crayon, and he still didn't understand what I was talking about. So, anyway, Dorothea Lange was born in Hoboken. And somebody asked how I get this close to people without them noticing it. And I just used the same response that Dorothea Lange gave when somebody asked her about the migrant mother photograph, that she's right in front of that woman and as close as can be. She answered, she said, "I put on my cloak of invisibility." Okay. So I was down in Hoboken once. When I was a kid, I used to box at the Y. And I was in a thrift shop. And I'm looking around, and in the back, hanging on one nail, was this cloak of invisibility. But nobody could see it except me. So I took it off the hook, I put it on, and I walked out. I never paid for it. I was invisible. Okay, so it's a metaphor. What I'm saying to you, if you want to photograph people, you have to figure out your own personality and what you're going to do to get close to these people without getting yelled at or saying, "Get the heck out of here." And I did that with these two. I just started a conversation with them, and we were talking and laughing and giggling and doing all these other things and taking jokes, and I'm shooting like mad. And I came up with this marvelous moment at the Mermaids Parade. Mermaids Parade. The one thing I enjoy most about photography is I love getting into situations where there's chaos and trying to make order out of chaos. This is my moment of zen. Whenever I can find somebody contemplating an air conditioner, you know, he stood there for 15 minutes. Oh, good heavens. But you got to remember, every lens has its own vocabulary. Just like in the old days, every film had its own vocabulary. Right now, I use a 20-24. It's a 24-1-4. And 24 gets me close. Has great depth of field, and I love getting close. I don't want to stand back, you know, like at a wedding, like wedding photographers have a zoom on. They stand back with a big flash and boom, 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 like that. No, I'm going to be in the middle of the dance floor taking pictures, being close with a 24 or a 28, but not with a zoom standing on the side like that. Now, this I love. This is what photographers do. Gene would know this. This is a guy named Harvey Stein. He's a good photographer. Lives in Brooklyn. He's been documenting Brooklyn for centuries. He's got 2 Leicas, and he's got an SLR with a Canon strobe on it. And rather than bending down and shooting, he wants to remain, you know, anonymous there. So he just kind of sneaks his camera down there. He's got a wide angle lens on. It's autofocus, and he's firing from there. If he bends his knees and he gets down, he's probably going to attract them. And that's not the photograph. He wanted a different, he wanted the, you know, the other guy that's putting silver glitter on. And I wanted the line, if you will, of the three cameras. And it really shows what street photographers go through. And you can see by the use on those cameras, you know, we bang our stuff around. This reminds me of a wonderful line by William Butler Yeats when he was talking about the Irish Revolution. And this is a terrible beauty. You know, there's nothing happy about death, but yet it's so, for me, it's so beautiful to look at. You know, I wish I were a poet. If any of you are a poet and want to write about this, please do. Again, shadows. You know, and there are plenty of them in New York City, especially late in the afternoon. You know, if you pay attention and you look for shadows, and all of a sudden you're standing by an area that has potential. And all of a sudden somebody comes into that area and you go, oh, that's great. Or maybe that's not so great, I'll wait until something else happens. Or maybe two people walk in. But stay at that situation and just watch it. You know, you may be given a gift, something may happen in it. It's the same thing here. I just got tired of shooting people. I said, God, I'm shooting so much. I want to shoot something different. And again, it shapes. I love the shape of the shadow more than I do the shape of the guy with whatever he's carrying, if it's a coat or something. And the tassels up in the air help. My son is at the Tisch School at NYU, and he's studying filmmaking. He's a senior now, he's graduating this spring. And I bug him all the time. Carry a camera with you. I mean, what are you doing? You want to study film? Carry a camera with you. He says, no, I do different film. You know, I do motion picture film. I go, but that's not the point. I said, you still want to train your eye to see, to look. No, I'm not going to do it. Finally, to get me off his back, he said, all right, I'll take it. I took the little G9, the little Canon G9. He's in the car with his mother. It's raining. He shoots out the window of the car, and this is what he comes up with. I said, if you were living in Paris in 1940, Man Ray would have hailed you as a surrealist. It's a wonderful moment for me, not because it's my son. I just think it's fabulously interesting and very surreal. And here's a kid, you know, if you ask him what surrealism is, he might not know. But instinctively he knows. And that's what I'm saying to you guys. Follow your instincts. Same thing here, shadows, light, chiaroscuro. Anybody know what chiaroscuro is? Google it. It's an important word. It was invented by an Italian named Michelangelo Caravaggio. And it was all about the contrast between lights and darks. This is why you carry a camera with you all the time. I'm going to a school play. You know, you got to sit through this drudgery of watching these kids. You know, oh God, I got to sit there for 2.5 hours. But, you know, all of a sudden you get this guy, and he says, take my picture, and this is it. You want some water, Don? You all right?
No.
Okay. One of my all-time favorite photographs. Being a practicing Catholic, and I'm not even a practicing Catholic, I'm pretty good at it. This photograph, behind the Blessed Mother is this huge halo, right? The problem was the Catholic Church never saw it as a halo. You know, or no, saw it as a halo, but the New Yorkers never saw it as a halo. Her name was Our Lady of the Satellite Dish. So once it finally got back to the bishop or the cardinal, that is no longer there. It's just not the same photograph. You know, you don't want to photograph that anymore. But the lady, you know, the lady in the beginning, you know, she's the one that knocks me out. She made the photograph. But Our Lady of the Satellite Dish looking over her, I'm sure she's fine. This is writing it and shooting with a 21 millimeter lens with a Nikon and a motor drive, and you're just firing. And you don't have to tell them to act or react or scream or anything. They will on the roller coaster. You want to have some fun on the roller coaster, ride it backwards. I did it 20 times. This is a republic. No, we're not getting into politics here, are we? No. He was a wonderful guy. I'm not crazy about his son, but I like him a lot. And I had to do a shoot with him and a bunch of other important businessmen from Australia. And one of the officials said, there may be some guys coming in a little late. So I said to him, I said, Mr. President, why not just stand there and put your hand out, and then once you leave, I can photograph these other gentlemen doing the same thing at a different angle, and we'll just strip it in on the computer and all that stuff. And it was fine. But this made a much more interesting photograph. Again, don't pass up these windows. This is a mannequin in the window and a bunch of people waiting for a bus. So you get some very, very interesting moments. Then you can go to Hoboken when there's a parade, and the Italians will provide plenty of things to do. This poor woman is suffering, carrying the Blessed Mother, and she's got a pillow under her, under her shoulder to keep it. And then this other woman is coming up, and she's caressing him. But another thing I like doing is I like interruptions in the frame. This guy's sticking his head out. You wouldn't normally pose a picture like that, but you would take it if it happened. For me, I want that kind of interruption. I want a hand in there, or a foot, or a face, or something like that. That kind of serendipity you can't plan for, so I'll take it any time. At an ordinary little cocktail party, you got your camera. If you keep looking and you wait and you see something, more shadows. Oh, sorry. That first guy that looked like Lee J. Cobb, this was at that same period. 1969 was when I first picked up a camera, went down to the Bowery and would shoot down there. This fella had an epileptic seizure, and these three guys came along to help him. And they were startled to see me shooting. This is what I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
Now that you've gone digital, when do you convert to black and white?
What do I convert to?
When do you
When?
convert?
When?
In terms of taking the picture, when do you go black and white?
Oh, always.
Like
Always.
You do it in the camera? Or
I see in black and white. No, I'll take the accidental color that really looks fabulous. So I will not shoot in black and white on the back thing, but I see in black and white. Every once in a while, maybe every 300-400 photographs, you'll say, oh, geez, I'm not going to convert that. It's marvelous in color. It's magnificent. So I'm going to leave it that way. But normally, I want it in black and white. It's more, I'm making more of a statement. Color is its own reward. I take a picture of Carol, she's got a lovely pink thing on, that's the subject. That's not really the subject, she's the subject, not the color of the shirt. I'm not knocking color. I mean, if I was, Jay Maisel would knock me out. But
So you shoot in color, but you you convert it
and then when I
on
get
the
it
computer.
on the computer, and I get it on the computer and I look at it, I just hit black and white. And actually, black and white is more difficult, I think. I think I have, and Gene probably does too, have a big advantage of spending, 30 years in the darkroom. So I know what a good print should look like, and I know what tonal range should look like. The guy that I really learned from was a guy named Mike Schifrin, who used to print for Irving Penn. This guy was a genius in the darkroom. So I owe a lot to Mike. And this guy fascinated me. Why somebody wants to put things under their skin, I don't know, but and I'm not making judgments about him. I love it as a portrait. My son's graduation from high school, and I'm just walking along following people, and then I find this surreal moment. This was taken not long ago down in the village. I had to drive my son into school, and I had a couple hours to kill. And I saw this marvelous wall. So park the car, I get out. And it's like I said, you find a situation, and then you wait for something to happen within that situation. And this guy made my photo. I've got, 15 photos that don't work, but one that did work. And you don't know, you see one photo and you go, that's great. But I got 14 others that don't measure up to this. But everything was right here. Now, one of the things I don't do is I don't title my photographs, because if I do that, then I rob you of your interpretation of what you're looking at. But this one I do, because I'm being a pain in the neck about this. This is called Only the Holy Ghost Cares. And that's enough said. The black opening there, like almost a sarcophagus, lends to the credence of this as well. Oh, sorry. There we go. Now, remember you said before about putting somebody right in the center of the picture? Doesn't work here. You don't want it. You want to, I wanted the cowboy, but I also wanted that flag. So I had to change the composition. Instead of just shooting the cowboy, I wanted both of them. This is what happens when you have absolutely no discipline for your child. He will come in there wearing whatever he wants, doing whatever he wants. Now, let's face it, he's a linebacker, isn't he? He's built like a linebacker. Look at the size of that child. There's only one thing, he was the captain of his tennis team in high school. He was a hell of a tennis player. For a big kid, you see him walking on the court, it's like your opponent is saying, oh boy, I got old fatso here, and then they get killed. Anyway, I love the kid. Gene, tell me what lens I shot this with. It's a dead giveaway.
300.
14 millimeter rectilinear?
Nope.
202.
Oh, it's a 500.
That's better.
Thank you, sorry.
Tell them why. It's a 500 millimeter lens.
Look at the shapes in the background.
It's the donuts that give it away. Actually, it was 1,000, but it's the same thing. It was 1,000, mirror lens. Anybody know who this is?
Yes.
Who?
Agassiz.
Very good. I'm eventually going to do a book. I don't know if anybody will publish it, but I'm going to do an online book entitled The Best Seat in the House. For 40 years, I've been shooting the U.S. Open, and I'm ahead of the corporate boxes. I'm right on the court. So it truly is the best seat in the house. It's also the hottest and the most boring at times. One of the reasons I like this, I don't know if you're a hockey fan or not, but you see the goalie? What's he doing? Anybody know what's he doing, or what's he not doing?
Saving the puck.
What's missing from him?
His helmet, face mask.
He has no face mask,
Right.
no helmet. He was the last guy to play in the hockey league without a face mask, last goalie. There was another guy that did it without a helmet But he was the last guy to play without that. And he had to be out of his mind. But I loved him because he was tough. My son again, to prove that he can play tennis. But the thing I look for in all tennis players, not only Anthony, but I love it when that racket comes across their face. I love to be looking through it. That's what you're going to see down there, Jim. Well, no, you're shooting the big boats, but that's Antigua Sailing Week. That's Muhammad Ali, and it was during a practice round with Thomas Hearns. I told my son never to throw the racket when he gets upset, so he bit the net instead.
He bit it.
Yeah, oh, he bit it all. Again, whenever I photograph sports, I look for the individual element, you know, of anguish, of joy, of suffering, whatever. That one player that's going to spell it out for me. And that's one of the reasons why I like rugby so much, is there's no equipment. There's nothing to hide these guys from.
What's the widest lens you've used at a rugby match?
Oh, I used to use a 28 and a 21. Although, what's the widest lens I used during a rugby match was the question, Liz. I used to use a 28 and a 21 because I was crazy. A lot of action happens on the sideline, but boy, you can get wiped out. You know, even if you know the game as well as I do, and I even played it for a while, it's not the place to be if you're sane. But if you want to get photographs that nobody else will get, you got to be there. And that's the key. I mean, that's the key, I think, for any photography, is if you can be somewhere that nobody else will go, and you're going to come back with something different. And I like surrealism. I like surreal moments where, you know, people are in their own space, in their own world. And, you know, and you ask so many questions about this photograph. What are they doing? What are they thinking? Why are they standing the way they're standing?
Talk about the planning of the shooting angle on that one, on that last one.
This?
Yeah.
The reason the question was, Liz, talk about the shooting angle. I'm sitting on a bench just offside the court. There's a break in the action, and the players are coming off the court. One of the women is leaving the court, and I'm just waiting for a situation where I can get disparate elements right where I want them, or right where they should be. You notice, one of the things I like best is that nothing touches anything. She's not touching him, he's not touching the other one. The other guy sitting down is just looking at something. Nothing is touching. And they're related, but they're not related. This is the wounded warrior. And one of the reasons for me this succeeds so well is there's nothing written on the backboards. This is before commercialism got into hockey. So you had a cleaner photo. All I know is I want to be articulate with my vision. I don't want to come out babbling. You know, when my kids were, when they were children, a 2-year-old, my son or my daughter would say, "Me want cookie." When they were 3, they'd say, "I want cookie." When they were 4, they said, "Daddy, I'm hungry. You know, can I have a cookie?" When they're 5, you know, their vocabulary is getting better. The same thing with you visually. Right now, you may be a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old. I don't know what level you're at. But the more you practice, the more you shoot, the better your vision is going to become, and you're going to be more visually acute by shooting more and more and more. I mean, you can read all the books you want. I don't read any of the books. The books I do look at are the ones with pictures in them. Those I love. And that's not going to hurt you to go to Barnes & Noble, go to the photographic section, sit down on those lovely chairs that they have there, and just look at pictures. on whatever subject you want. Doesn't have to be sports, doesn't have to be street photography, doesn't have to be weddings, it could be landscapes. Two Carols like landscapes, by all means, look at that. But that's where you learn from. You learn by looking, and then you go out and you practice what you've seen. This bears out only one thing and one thing only. White men cannot jump. Not like him. His name is Gael Monfils. He's a Frenchman. And I don't care where he's playing and who he's playing against, I will be there. I will be there, and it doesn't matter to me whether he wins or loses, but I know at some point during the match, he will give me this photograph. This kid is always available for something magnificent. And if you're going to shoot sports, here's another thing. A lot of people say, well, geez, you know, I'd love to shoot a giant game, or I'd love to shoot a Ranger game, or I'd love to shoot this or shoot that. Forget about going to Madison Square Garden or Giants Stadium. Go to a kids game, because there you can do whatever you want. Nobody's going to yell at you, and you're going to learn how to shoot by watching the children play. Watch the little bitty leagues, then you move up a little bit to maybe Pop Warner leagues, then you move up to a high school game, and then if you want, maybe you can go to Rutgers and shoot Rutgers at Giants Stadium. But go up incrementally and practice. And practice under all kinds of weather, because you don't know what the heck you're going to get. You know, it's not always going to be a bright sunny day. It can be raining. Then what do? It's raining. You got to push your film or push your chip up to a higher ASA. You got to get plastic bags and put it around your camera. You learn how to shoot like that. But I would start off with the little Pop Warner leagues. I do that with my son all the time. I'd go up to the basketball courts they were playing on, and I would stand literally right by the basket, right by the pole, and I'd have a wide-angle lens on. All I wanted was the little short stuff in here. I don't care about a guy who's taking a three-pointer. There's no action there. I want the kids battling for the rebounds. So I just stand there with a 28 or a 21 and just fire. You'd be surprised what great photographs you get. And just shooting ordinary people, not pros. This guy is arguably the greatest hockey player of all time, Wayne Gretzky. And I was very lucky. In the old days, we used to be able to shoot from the penalty box. And the players are right next to us, and the light is perfect on them. Of course, I moved it around a little bit, you know, on the computer. And when I can get a picture of Muhammad Ali or Wayne Gretzky or any of the other giants, you know, that's important to me. I love the fact that I'm getting the greatest athletes, you know, of their profession. This picture is really made in a computer. It doesn't look like this at all. And it's one of the things that I like so much about this, quote, new photography. Because in the old days, I didn't shoot that much color. I did, when I worked for Newsweek, I had to shoot color. When I worked for Sports Illustrated, I had to shoot color. Except there was one time for Newsweek, I had to shoot black and white. Jimmy Colton called me and said, we're doing a story on tuberculosis. And you'll have to go into the hospitals, into the dregs, where the dregs of humanity are sleeping on the floor, and you know, into the Port Authority down in the bowels of the building. And I'm psyched. I'm ready for that. And he says, and it's in black and white. And he gave me the best compliment I've ever had in photography. He says, I want you to shoot it, I want you to develop the film, and I want you to print it. I said, why? You have a lab here. He says, they can't print like you can. And that's important to me, because the black and white that I show you, I'm really strict with that. And I hold it to a high standard. But this here, this particular photograph is a good 2 stops underexposed. I really darkened that sky. And I lost the birds, But you can in Photoshop, I can enlarge that one section and just address each bird with the cursor and lighten it up. And I can even change the color. I can make it even a brighter pink, if you will, than that. So, yes, ma'am. Question, please?
Thanks. I used to work at Newsweek too, which I'll talk to you
Oh,
about
did you?
later, yeah. You talked about printing and black and white printing, and I'm assuming, obviously, that was in your darkroom. How would you compare that with quote-unquote printing today? And would you say...
Yeah, the only difference that I see is the paper. I love silver gelatin prints. And today's paper is as good as Hannah Mule paper is, and Moab. You know, they're all excellent papers. They're still not silver gelatin. Though I can come up with some really lovely stuff these days. I just don't, you know, they're very fragile, these things too. If you accidentally, you know, hit your nail across one of them, you're gonna leave a scar. But in a silver gelatin, it was a lot tougher, I think, anyway. Do you print yourself using an Epson? What number?
3,800 at home.
So you can go up to 17 inches, can't you? Yeah, well, that's fine. And the Epson's an excellent machine. Not that I'm plugging anything. I guess the Canon's good too, but I have an Epson. I like it. Gene, same thing?
I couldn't agree more. Hey, listen, you brought a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
I want to see more of them.
Okay.
Go faster.
Okay. Same thing here. Underexposed by 2 stops. Take a latitude. You know, doesn't look like this when it comes out of the camera. Not even close. But when you look at it and you're trained to accept things that the computer will give you, I just knock it down 2 stops and I got that, which is much more exciting than the original photo. This is easy stuff. I'm not showing you much, but you know, if you have an 80 to 200 zoom and you stand right at the water's edge and the surf is right, you'll get pictures like this. They're pretty easy to get. I'd rather do it in California with a 600, you know, or an 800. Oh. This is what I really love. I go in the middle of the game. When the kids are playing, I go in the middle of the game. And I get bounced around all right. I love it. You know, I played enough football and enough rugby to know what to do and how to handle myself. And I tell the kids, I go, look, if I'm in your way and you got to make a tackle, knock me down, man. I don't care. You know, you got to play to win, and don't worry about me. You treat me like a referee. You know, you try to avoid the ref, but if you can't, you can't. The difference is, where the heck are you going to get a physical moment like that from the sideline with a big, long lens? You're not. So you go in the middle of the game with a short lens and take your lumps. This, for me, is a very special photograph. One of the greatest ball players of all time, Larry Bird.
Do you know where that's taken at?
Yeah, I do, Indiana.
French Lick.
It was taken at the Hoosiers gym in Indiana. You see, it's all wood. Everything's wood. You know, and they recently changed the black backboards to glass, but they used to be wood. And this is Larry Bird, who's a bit taciturn by nature. He tends to be a bit quiet and shy, and that's his son. And he said the most remarkable thing to me. I watched him. I was sitting there, I didn't say a word, I just watched him for about a half an hour and talking to his son. And then it came this moment that, you know, there's a disconnect. It's not as if they're not even connected. I mean, it's a bit existential in that sense. But I said to him afterwards, I said, Larry, you look at your son the same way I look at my son. He said, he's my hero. That's all he said. I said, oh my God, this guy doesn't say much, but when he does, he knocks you out with it. So, and again, like I said, one of the top 5 greatest ball players of all time. And these 3 knuckleheads. These 3 are the 3 greatest of the last 25 years. not including Federer and these guys, but McEnroe, Connors, and Bjorn Borg. And here's where I thought, I didn't know if I was going to get this photo. I was in the locker room, and I was clowning around with Jimmy, and Bjorn tends to be a bit quiet and shy, and he's combing his hair. And I said, who's next? He said, Mac. I said, oh, geez, John's coming in. Now, I don't know from day to day what John's going to be like. Sometimes he's great, sometimes he's moody. So I said, oh, please, let him be nice. So I said, John, look, Mac, Borg, and Jimmy are in the other room. I'd like to get you in there, the three greatest players of a generation. I want to get all three of you in there. He said, okay, fine. I almost fell over. Comes in, we're clowning around. He puts his hand on Jimmy Connors, his biggest enemy. These two don't like one another. And I got these big smiles from John. I knew I was going to get it from Jimmy, and I wasn't worried about Bjorn. It was Mac that I was worried about, but he pulled it through. And this is my closest friend in tennis, arguably the greatest woman tennis player of all time, Martina Navratilova. And she owed me a favor. I did a shoot for her, and we were trying to work out a price, and I said, look, I want you to hit with my kid for an hour. I said, and that'll do it. I said, you know, it cost me that much anyway if I had to do it with McEnroe or Connors, so I'll do it with you. Just hit with my kid for an hour. She gets a court at the U.S. Open. I wasn't expecting that. You know, maybe here in Jersey somewhere. She gets a court at the U.S. Open. And I told her, I said, look, he was captain of the team in high school. He's a good player. He's steady. He can hit with you. He's not going to embarrass you. You're not going to be running balls all over the place because he can't keep it on the court. I said, he can't beat you, but he can hit with you. She gets a court. On one side is Justine Henin, who won the tournament the year before. Now, my son knows this. On the other court is Venus Williams. So Anthony's in the middle between these two greats playing with the greatest. So.
Did you take pictures?
Oh, yeah. Oh, who said? Get her name. Did I take pictures? This is what I love doing, is going to high school games, like I said before. If you want to learn how to shoot, go to a high school game. And then just hang around. You know, and you get close to the kids. Now, I'm lucky in a sense because some of these kids know who I am, so I'm not going to get arrested. But there's the tilted picture, you know. I see the kid so quickly, I've got to shoot, because if I go like this and I stop and I aim, she may look at me. So I'm going to do what James Arness used to do in Gunsmoke, where he comes out and he goes like that. He doesn't go like this. He goes like that. He shoots a guy and the guy's dead. You know, I do the same thing and I hope I hit him.
It's so much more interesting this way.
It is. Well, like I said before, it tests the ballast of the photograph. There's my man, Gilles Monfils. He does a split. Unbelievable. But it's the face that makes it, you know. High school baseball. Look at the light that's in the dugout. It was just extraordinary. Now here's the perfect example. Before you asked if I shoot in black and white all the time. I'm not going to change that. That'd be insane. It's a beautiful color picture. It's lovely. Kid was drafted by the Yankees. He's batting .287 right now, playing minor league baseball. His name is Robbie Segadin. And, okay, now we're going to really play a game. What's the shutter speed I'm using here?
1,000.
1,000?
4,000.
Don said that. I'm sorry?
4,000.
Who said that? Raise your hand. Very good. 4,000. 1,000's not going to do it, Don. You're going to get a slight blur. You know, even 2,000. So you got to go as high as you can. And you got to shoot 1,000,000 shots, because, you know, it's not every time at bat he's going to get hit by a pitch. So, you know, you got your camera. I'm using a big Canon that shoots 8 frames a second, because you have to. You don't know where the ball's going to be. You just, like that and hope you get it. And I'm using I use an 80 to 200 with an extender, a one point. Same thing here, 4,000. But I had to shoot a lot to get this.
Effective ASA?
Probably 200, I'm guessing.
What's the question?
Oh, what was the ASA? I'm sorry. The ASA was about 200. You know, it's a bright sunny day. That's not a big deal. I'm shooting wide open anyway. I love shooting wide open. I told you, white men can't jump, not like these guys. This is an old buddy of mine, Donnie Brown. And what I really like about him, Dustin Brown, his name is, I call him Donnie. But he and Bjorn Powell, if you look at Bjorn Powell, you look at his face, you realize that, you know, he doesn't come from Europe or America, he's Asian, right? He plays doubles with Dustin Brown. And this is the great part about it is, you know, in doubles, the players will put balls in their hands and they'll cover their mouths because they want to exchange, okay, you're going left, I'm going to serve it to his backhand, you want to come in and go across. And they go, okay, fine. And they cover their mouths. And I said to Brownie once, after the match, he says, what the hell are you covering your mouth for? I said, you're both speaking German. He's German. He was raised in Germany. Powell, who looks like he's from the Philippines or Thailand, raised in Germany, and they're both speaking German. The same. I used to tell the Russian players the same thing. I said, don't bother covering your mouths, man. Nobody's going to understand what you're talking about. Could be one of the greatest of all time if she'd behave herself. She's a great player. This is where you have the most fun. Go into a schoolyard somewhere. This doesn't happen anymore in New York City, and it's a shame for me. I used to love these kids. You know, whenever they got ripped up, they'd get tape and just tape up their things. And you know, if you look at the skates they're using were the old skates that we used to use as
How worn down those
children.
wheels are. They're tiny.
Oh yeah. It's really one of my favorite photographs. Another picture that should not be in black and white. Another thing, if when you're out shooting stuff like this, look for not only look at the child, but look at the background. And if you can get a black background like this, you know, just thank the photographic gods that they put you in the right place. Again, you know, for me, the game action is pretty easy. You know, I've been doing it long enough, so this is hard. Is to get into a situation where the kids are not going to pay any attention to you, and they're going to let you alone, and you're going to come up with some interesting moments as to why these kids are playing the game. This is pretty easy. I like this because of the two girls, they're in the exact same motion. Their knees are bent at the same spot, and they're both pushing up on the other foot. This I like it even more. Oh wait, this is rugby. This is the game I adore. Because I found out when I was playing that you didn't really need any talent to play rugby. You needed to be crazy. You know, and I got an A+ in crazy. So I just love the game, and he's perfect. He's a rugby player. You'll see that when you go to New Zealand. Now, he saw the surfing pictures I did before. Again, they're pretty easy. You know, if you have a long enough lens and you fire enough, this is hard. It's stopping a kid, doesn't know who you are, you don't know who they are, and you say, would you mind if I take your picture? Now, it's different in California. Usually it's pretty easy in California. In New York, you go, what do you want my picture for? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to get paid? You don't get that in California. Okay, sure, fine. Presently, I'm working on another online book called Existential Tennis. And these are the existential moments that I love to capture. You know, to me, this is as valuable as any picture of Eli Manning, you know, getting trampled. This is just as important to me as that. It's just great action, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, ladies. I'd like to introduce myself. Boom. Now, you say, oh, well, these girls can't be very bright playing a vicious game like that. This is Vassar and Princeton. You know, these kids should know better. This picture, and I'm not bragging, but it's going to be in a technical magazine, so you may see it pretty soon. I used to go down to Jersey City, you know, because I'm from that area, in 1980. And the kids used to swim in the river. I love the river and I love those kids. And the other thing is, like I said before, you know, you put on your cloak of invisibility, you sit down, you be friendly, and you say, look, I'm working, you're playing, you do what you're doing, I'm going to do what I'm doing, and we'll ignore one another and have a good time. This is what I grew up in, like this. Concrete and Cubans, they used to call it. It was all concrete and brick buildings. A friend of mine said to me once, he says, if I didn't see you bleeding, I knew you had a bad game. You know, and you got roughed up in the schoolyards. Where are you going to find a greater swimming hole than this? You know, with the backdrop of the Empire State Building, the World Trade Center, and big ships coming by, sailboats coming by. And you know, and it's organic because it keeps changing with, you know, different times of day. The light is different. The boats are different. There was no better place to photograph kids at play than Jersey City in those days. Now it's all been gentrified. You couldn't do that again this year. This one really threw me. I thought I knew my stuff, but I got thrown for a loop. See the picture of the Blessed Mother and the child? I'm looking at that and I say, oh, that's Orthodox, you know. So I said to the guy who's running the hot dog stand, I said, that Russian Orthodox? Are you right? He couldn't have been Russian because he had warm skin, you know, jet black hair. And I was saying, he doesn't look Russian, but that's a Russian cross. So I said, Russian Orthodox? He said, no. I said, Greek? The only two Orthodox I know. Any idea where it might have been? Egyptian. Behind him, the statue with the soldier with the bayonet in his back comes from Poland. In 1940, the Russians massacred 15,000 Poles at a place called Caitlin. And when I shoot it from the other side, and I think I have one photograph of it, I juxtaposed the statue and the World Trade Center because we were stabbed in the back. And there's the metaphor for it, you know, of that statue. This picture unnerves me a bit because a real good friend of mine, Dick Drew, who works for Associated Press, he took a picture. All these guys, I have great admiration for the photographers that photographed the World Trade Center on the day it happened, because these guys were up and they were there. You know, there's an expression in photography, it's F8 and be there. And you get there, man. And Dickie took a picture of a guy that had jumped out, but he's going down head first. And in a sense, this prefigures that. But I want to digress for a second. I was addressing a class like this, not as nice as you, but a class like this, and somebody raised their hand, a young student said, how do I know I want to be a photographer? Easy question. So when you get up in the morning and you go to the window and you're looking out your window and your roommate or your mother or your sister or anybody comes in the room and says, what's it like outside? One answer, and only one answer. It's F8 at 250. That's how you know you want to be a photographer. You're studying the light already. Jay Maisel had one of the greatest lines. He's 150 years old and he has a little baby, right? I said, what are you, crazy? You're a father at that age? He has this baby, and Linda, his wife, is in the room, in the bedroom, and she's breastfeeding the child. And Jay's moping around, and Linda says, what are you doing? He said, you're not meeting my needs. And she said, oh, really? What are your needs? He goes, look, next time you do something with the baby, do it in good light. You know? So if you want to be a photographer, that's all your life is light. And that's reinforced by picking up a book by Caravaggio. That's where you learn light. You know, the Dutch masters picked it up from him. Again, you know, the metaphors are rampant in this. You know, you've got this child in its fetal position. You know, does he dare dream about what might be happening, what might happen? You know, the terror that awaits him in his dream. Well, any time you want your car stripped, you let me know, and I have the number of these guys. And this is a situation, I rarely do this, but I had to do it in this case. I wanted the car, I wanted the towers, and I wanted the kids. So I decided to place them on the car. He says, get on the cars, do whatever you want, get on the cars. And I didn't say, you go up top, you do this. They found their own space, which I love. And then all I have to do is push the button, you know. But the other thing is, I don't want what I think amateurs make a big mistake when they photograph children and they go, smile, and the kid goes like that. Keep the smile out of it. I don't mind laughter. Laughter's fine because it's spontaneous. But when you suggest a smile, amateurs don't know how to smile. Children don't know how to smile. They always go like that. So I said to the guys, I said, just look at the camera. I didn't say, don't smile, don't do this. I said, just look at the camera. That was it. And that makes it. Same thing here. I don't know if I have another one. I think I may. This used to drive me crazy because every heat wave in New York City, you can just hear the picture editors at Daily News and the Post saying, all right, get up to Harlem and get those cute little kids running around and, you know, turning on the fire hydrants, right? Okay. So they go up there with an obligatory long lens, maybe a 180 or a 300, and they're photographing all the little children running around in the water. That drove me nuts because I felt the pictures were in the water. You know, it's like the football games that I photographed. it's in the game. So I think I have a picture that explains that. Talk about a wide angle lens, that's a 21. And I told the kid, I said, just dive right past my hand. If you hit it, don't worry about it. Just dive right past my hand. And that's what made the photo. This is what pure communism is all about. Here's an old man shaving, and he's using a woman's mirror. Now, if that happened in my house, the first thing I'd hear from my daughter saying, Anthony, that's my mirror. You get down there where everything is poor, it's everybody's mirror. Whoever lived in that house, it's everybody's mirror. It's not my mirror, it's not my razor, it's not my cup. It's all a communal thing. Now, you talk about light. I went down to Antigua, I put a backdrop, just a cloth on a wall, and I put a stool like this and a window, and it was all window light. And you get things like that. These are the ones that kill you. If you're doing any fashion, and I've done some, I don't like doing it, but I've done some fashion, and I was shooting with a Leica, and I said, oh damn, that's my last frame. So I said to the little boy, I said, just a second. I said, I'm rewinding the film, and I look up and I see the kid, he assumes this position. Before he was looking at me. Now he's assumed this position, and I'm going, don't let him move. Please don't let him move. So, and I'm starting to do it slower. I don't want him to hear me, you know? And I gotta take off the back real quietly, take the film out, put the other film in. I know I'm gonna drop the film and I'm gonna fumble it. Finally, I put it in like that, and I get it, and I aim, and I got it. That was the moment. The ones where he was looking at me, this is serendipity. I wanted the kid with the dove, and then these two girls came by and made the photograph. Look at how suspicious they are. This is in a church in Antigua. Oh, I'm sorry. This training served me pretty well when I went to China. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask you about the previous pictures and the lighting. Was that, I mean, you were out.
This one?
Well, that one and that one, you're indoors, you're outdoors, it really doesn't matter. But the lighting that you're able to capture all the time.
I don't capture it. You're on the Caribbean. That light is unbelievable. Unbelievable light. Any tropical light, whether you're in the Caribbean or Africa, you're not going to get the same light in Norway, you know, unless during the summer or something like this. But here's the hard part, and I used to yell at them. I spent 30 years down in Antigua, and it says it in my book. I have a book, and I was photographing a little girl. Now, my name in this village is Tumperbee, T-U-M-P-E-R-B-E-E. Everybody in the village knows me by that name. They don't know my real name, Tumperbee. And I'm photographing a child in the road, about 5 or 6, and a car comes into the village, and the car was either from another village that didn't know me, or was from an expatriate that was from living in England and was coming back home. And he rolls down the window and he said, "You, white man, stop taking picture of that child." A little girl turns around and says, "He not white man, he Tumperby." And that was the end of that. And it started originally, my first day in the village. And I do that, and this is my advice to you, is my first day in that village, I saw an old man. Now, when you're down in Antigua and you're photographing old men, they're anywhere from 80 to 180. They're really old, these guys, and they're weather beaten, and their skin is like leather. And their hands are the most important thing for me, because they're all calloused and they have such big knuckles from arthritis. But they're gentle. They're the gentlest things in the world, these guys. And I stopped this one guy, and I don't normally do this because I'm a thief, and any street photographer is a thief. I asked him, I said, "Would you mind if I took your picture?" And he said, "I know why you want my picture, because I am black and ugly." I said, "Let's get something straight here." Right away. I said, "This is my first time in this village. First time here. I don't know anything about it." And I'm looking around, but what I see, I like. So I don't want you, if we ever meet again, to ever make a distinction between me and you, because my skin is one color and your skin's another color. That has no bearing on anything. As far as you being ugly, man, you're the ugliest thing I've seen all day. And if I had to kiss that donkey before I kissed you, I would kiss the donkey. He thought that was hilarious, and that was it. I never had trouble in that village again by somebody saying to me, "You're white and I'm black." Okay, so what? You're also stupid, or you're fat, or you're thin. You know, there are a million other things you can be. Why don't you bring those things up? So just keep that out of the equation. If you like me, fine. If you don't like me, that's fine too. So I'd like it if you like me, you know, it'd be better for you and me. I'd get better pictures. I love this. This says so much, you know. There's this old guy. He's been working the same ground for the last 50 or 60 years, you know, subsistence living, you know, growing some potatoes, coconut, oranges, and there's the shack that he lives in. And I'll be damned if I can figure out why they shut those shutters. The only reason is you may get a storm, so it's wet. But those are really not shacks, they're ovens. And until those shutters are open, they remain ovens. Now, for a guy like me who's not used to that, they're used to it. He's used to it. Francis, didn't bother him, but it would drive me nuts. I'm fortunate. The village has changed quite a bit. It's become there's more money. People are getting more jobs. So you don't see the children in bare feet, you know, cooking out of coal pots. That's a coal pot she's using. And it's charcoal, and she's frying fish. And that fish came this morning from the ocean. This is not from a supermarket or anything. This is fresh fish. That's the good news. The bad news is she's frying it in vegetable oil, and the women all have high blood pressure down there. The men not so, but the women. And the coal pot, the thing that I loved about the coal pot, it's a bowl-shaped thing, and they fill it with charcoal. Now, some of the villages can't afford charcoal. I mean, they're desperately poor. So what I saw this old woman do once, she stopped the child, she says, "Get me a coconut." So the kid climbs a tree. They all can climb those trees, which is amazing. Gets a coconut, it falls to the ground. She gets it with a machete, or a cutlass, they call it, and she chops it up. She takes the husk and puts it in the coal pot, and that's her fuel. Good news. Cheap, doesn't cost her anything, right? And it burns. That's the good news. Bad news is smokier than heck. She gets covered in smoke, her house gets covered in smoke, the chicken that she's cooking or the fish, all covered in smoke. But that's the problem with poor. Again, if you can find that neutral background, it doesn't have to be black. In this case, it's gray. That's fine. Here's the flash. Again, I had to use it. And ironically, this picture works well in color as well. This is a woman named Grace that gave me a hard time for 30 years. Didn't want her picture taken, and I always stole it. This is the cover of my book. It says a lot about the island. If you look under the boat, you'll see a log. There's one toward the back of the boat as well. They'll push it up to the front. They'll push the boat up. They'll take the back log and move it up to the front and move it up again, and they keep moving the logs up until they get the boat on secure land. And everybody helps. Everybody helps. This means everybody can get some fish, because the men went out fishing. And this is another thing they did. I was very annoyed at them. They used to go out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they'd come in about 9 o'clock that morning, and they'd row in. You know, and I photographed this for about 15 years. One year they had a motorboat. Had a motor on them, and I yelled at them. I said, "What are you doing? You doing this? You entered the modern era. This is no good for my photographs. I want you rowing and sweating and suffering. This is nonsense. I can't do anything with these photographs." You know, and they always yell at me, and they throw sand at me. But I had a great relationship with them because we had a lot of fun. They didn't take me seriously, and I didn't take them that seriously. But in the background, you'll see that hump back up on the hill. That tells about where they came from. That's a sugar mill. And that's why they were brought to that island originally as slaves, was to pick sugar cane. And they put it in there. And these things go back to the 17th century. And there are, I guess, about 20 of them left on the island. They crumble down after a while. But they're interesting historically, you know, to look at throughout the Caribbean. This is a funeral. And the one thing, as street photographers, as journalists, we are not allowed to blink. And we're there to get a photograph. Now, I'm not there because I'm working for the Daily News or the Times or anything, but I think like that. I have to enter this situation, and I know how sensitive it is for these people. This is a tough time for them. And I have got to get this picture. We just went to Russia. This is in a cemetery called Novodevichy. We went back to Antigua. I don't know why that picture was in there. This guy on the left. Now, this is, again, you know, photographers are liars and they're cheaters, and we do it for one reason. We think it's important and we want it. It was like, there's a wonderful little film about a maid who works for the sculptor Henry Moore, and he notices that one of his sculptures is missing. So he calls the police, and the police come in, and they ask questions, and they go to the maid's house. And they said, you know, there's a sculpture missing. And she said, I took it. And they bring her back to Henry Moore, and he says, why did you take it? She said, because it spoke to me. And that's important. So it's the same thing with you guys. Hey, we're not finished with Antiguan photographs, man. Anyway, the thing is, if you see a photograph, if you're walking in the street and somebody's selling photographs, and it's something that moves you, buy it. You support the photographer, and it's something you can live with. But the guy on the left, Ronnie Brown, said, you can't see me, can you? I said, no, Ronnie, don't worry about it. And he and his wife bookend their daughter, and really makes it a lovely photograph in that sense. This I took last year, going back. You got to get in the game, right? I'm up to here with water, with a Leica saying, oh, no waves. You know, and I'm going back like this, and he goes any deeper, I'm lost. This was right after church. I don't know what he was doing. See what happens when you use that wide-angle lens and you get real close? I mean, you as a viewer can feel that. You can actually touch that kid. She's so close.
Was that a 28? Or?
28, exactly, 28. These guys really have to learn how to relax. Remember before when you said about in the middle of the picture? If that donkey, a baby donkey, were in the middle of the picture, it's not there. That line down the middle, you know, is bringing you out toward the mountain, and it's balanced by the other animals on either side. This photo is it's important because it's about what they eat, but it's also about texture and tone, which I like so much. This is not what everybody wants in their wedding photographs, but I do. I want this. I want this. The Museum of Modern Art wants this. Other people may not want this. It depends. You know, some people, you know, if I'm doing an art director's wedding, he'll love this photograph. You know, and his wife might say, I don't know if I like that. My daughter's wedding, that's my hand holding up her veil, and I'm shooting like that. This is the one where I blew it. I would have liked to have, there's a railing that he has his hand on. Had I moved over and leaned over like this, I would have gotten them in the mirror and here. I would have doubled it up. You know, I like what's going on in the background there, you know, with the lady smiling, but I would have liked to have seen the father and the daughter there. And I'm going to ask them if they'll reenact that for me one of these days. It's the same thing. I'm in the game. I'm in the middle of the dance floor.
So are you shooting this with flash, and this is a big wide angle here on this?
No, I do what Larry Fink does. He uses a normal lens, I mean a wide angle lens, but a normal flash. In other words, the flash would be set for a 50 millimeter and he's using a 28, so the edges will go dark. I do the same thing. I use the pop flash, which is amazing. I rarely use my Canon flash. The pop flash on the 20D. Yeah, I don't even use the 5D. Look at how close you can get. You know, and you know, it's the little details like, see the hand on her shoulder? I love things like that. Again, it's all with the pop flash, nothing very sophisticated, you know, and the 16 millimeter lens. There are times that I'll eliminate the background. If there's something in the background and I say, that doesn't fit. You know, Cartier-Bresson would not like that if I did that, but I don't care. And same thing with cropping. He never cropped, and I crop all the time. Again, if you think in terms of main plot and subplot, you got the main plot is the silly girl in the foreground, but then you have this very serious subplot that's happening in the background. Maybe that's going to appear in the film next, you know, in the next frame. Like if you think in terms of making a movie, that's the next scene. There's some trouble in the background. It's not that gruesome. I'm amazed this picture came out because I'm shooting into the mirror, right? But that shows you the speed of light, that it's hitting the mirror and coming back while the shutter's still open. Again, I love the subplots. You know, you're concentrating on the two people in the foreground, and you just hope that girl does something silly in the background. Or a mother at a wedding. See why you don't put them in the middle of the picture? Because if you do, then you don't get the horse.
That's what my father said.
Oh, okay. All right, technically I'll explain this to you. It's not a double exposure. It's something very simple. I'm shooting with the flash, but I'm dragging the shutter. I'm shooting at about a 15th of a second. So you're going to get a little motion in there. And that's what really makes the photograph, is the dimension it creates. Okay, now you think that's the bride being reflected in there. It's not. It's the guy. I mean, you talk about refraction of light, that is really strange. It's the guy. Well, I looked at that picture and I said, oh, great, I got the girl. I said, no, that's not the girl. Because I was aiming for the girl when I shot it. Sorry. How low was I here? Simple. You put the camera down. You know. How do you know? You do it enough, you figure it out. No, it's just a matter of practice. You know, there's no question about it. You're going to miss sometimes, but for the most part, you really know what you're pretty much getting. You know, and it's a matter of practice. I'm using a wide angle, but I have the pop-up flash, which really is not it doesn't spread that much. It only spreads to about a 50 millimeter. Okay, I want those edges to go dark. Now, if I don't hold that camera down low like this and shoot up, I don't get the monumental size of that man, you know, and those three people and all this empty space back there. That, for me, is so important. And the reason I do that, you know, if I wanted, I could bend down and do that, but I don't want any motion. I don't want them to see me moving. You know, so I have my camera down here, down the side, and I just, you know, raise it up a little bit so it's not going to distract them from looking off somewhere else. I don't want them looking at me. So I'll shoot from my hip. And the same thing, when you go to weddings, bring your wide angle lens, put your flash on, and go in the middle of everything. These guys were great. You believe that's coming from a pop flash, all that light? I held the glass up on this one because I was taking a drink, and then I just kind of looked through it, and then I saw how it refracted things, so I held it up as the bride was standing there and just shot through it. But that's not a wide-angle lens. I shot that with, I don't know, maybe a 16 to 35 zoom. Again, you don't want this in your wedding album. And I don't care. I mean, I shoot enough pose stuff and enough of the other stuff, but I really want things like this. They haven't eaten in months. Poor things. You know what those two are up to. Have you ever seen her dress like that? God, how can she show up? Ah. Sorry. Here you got the plot and the subplot. You know, the woman, I'm watching the woman blowing these bubbles, and all of a sudden I see this guy in the background. I go, oh, thank you. He made that photograph. A lot of this is made in the darkroom. There's stuff in the background here, and I got rid of it. I didn't want it in there. I just wanted the girl who's getting her hair done and the hairdresser. And it's cropped because I have the hairdresser in there, but her expression is it's just not there. So look at it this way. When you put it on the computer, it's a re-photographic process. You're looking at something and you're saying, you know, I missed it by that much. You say, wait a second, what if I crop this? Then I didn't miss it. So I'm saying cropping is fair game. You know, irrespective of what Cartier-Bresson says, and I understand the purity of his work. But I'm not a documentarian like he is. I'm interested in making interesting pictures. How you got them, the process is, I could care less. I'm interested in making interesting moments. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask about, in these wedding pictures, a lot of your stuff, even though you're waiting for a decisive moment, is impromptu. You got to be there, you got to get it.
Yeah.
Are you shooting manual mode or aperture priority, or do you just sort of say, I know the light well enough, I'm going to do f8, or maybe you said you like to shoot wide, f2?
I would like to shoot in manual. I would like to set it so I don't have to worry about it. There are times where I'll just put it on program, and just, because if I'm going from situation to situation, I don't want to have to keep setting it. But here, I knew what the light was going to be. I wanted to keep the shutter speed. That was the important thing. I didn't want any blur or motion in it. So I had to get it up to at least 200, preferably 250, and then I feel comfortable, because if the girl's going to move her hands, which she did, I didn't want any motion in that. So I will use it on manual by all means. Oops, sorry. I don't know what the hell they were crying about. That's the groom and his brother. These are wonderful. They're kids.
Oh my goodness.
See, everything happens at a wedding. The one thing you can't do is you can't be a wedding photographer, because they're formulaic. They have a formula. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. I don't do any of those things. The bride says, let's do this, let's do that. That's fine. It's her wedding, I'll do it. But if you leave me alone, I'm going to be better off. I mean, where do you get things like that at a wedding, you know? There's the natural light. You know, and it's so much, yeah, look at the difference. That's a flash. That's a natural light. For me, the accident is the picture. The guy on the left, what the heck is he doing there? Give me an ethnic wedding anytime. Jewish, Italian, Greek. The four sisters. I'm so happy to have gotten this photograph because they're all sisters and they're great kids. I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you. Thank you.
For more information, please visit us online, give us a call, or stop by our New York City Superstore. You can also connect with us on the web.